If a massive earthquake were to hit, say, a few specific square miles in Tokyo tomorrow, the global economy wouldn't just stumble. It would likely collapse.
Oh, completely. You'd feel the ripple effects in your bank account, your grocery store, your retirement fund within hours.
It's crazy to think about. Welcome to our deep dive, everyone. Today we are taking you into the invisible forces that silently run our lives. We're pulling from this massive, really fascinating encyclopedic groundwork laid out in DK's Geography of the World.
Yeah, it's a fantastic resource.
It really is. And our mission today is to kind of crack open this profound realization. Because physical geography doesn't just dictate where you live, it actually dictates how you live. What you invent, how you organize your family.
Exactly. I mean, we tend to think of maps as these static, comforting paintings, right? Like the ones we stared at in grade school.
Right, just sitting there on the wall.
Yeah, but the reality is much more aggressive, far more aggressive. But we walk around with this illusion that the ground beneath our feet is just, a finished product, just a foundation we build our lives on top of. But when you look at the geographic and planetary data, you realize geography is this dynamic, relentless operating system. And it forces humanity into a constant state of innovation.
So we're going to zoom way out first to look at the massive physical machinery of the Earth. And then we're going to zoom right in on specific places, particularly Japan and Southern Africa, to see how humans actually survive under that extreme geographical pressure.
Which is really the core of human history, if you think about it.
Totally. But before we get to the humans, let's look at the playing field we've been handed. It is essentially a planetary lottery. Like, did you know only 29% of the Earth is land?
It's wild. And nature did not distribute that 29% evenly at all.
No, not even close. Asia hit the jackpot. They took up roughly 30% of that available landmass, while a continent like Australia got essentially the leftovers, sitting at just 5%.
Yeah, just 5%.
But it's not just about the amount of dirt you get, right? It's what the planet does to that dirt. The research lays out the mechanics of our natural systems, and it is staggering. We're talking about tectonic plates constantly grinding beneath us.
Right, and atmospheric engines, too, like tropical cyclone.
Oh, yeah, which we call hurricanes in the Americas, or typhoons in the Pacific.
What's fascinating here is that these cyclones aren't just destructive, it's how they work. They are massive heat engines. They literally draw thermal energy from warm ocean waters and convert it into wind and rain.
The scale's just...
The sheer volume of energy they transfer is hard to even comprehend.
Yeah, the numbers on this are mind-blowing. The thunderstorms within a single tropical cyclone can generate an amount of energy in just one day that equals what the entire United States uses in a year.
In a single day.
One day. It's like the Earth is this restless landlord who constantly remodels the apartment without asking, using typhoons to knock down walls. And we are just the tenants scrambling to figure out where to put the couch.
That's a great way to visualize it. And, the landlord doesn't just use sudden violent renovations either. There are also these vast, slow-moving disruptions, like El Nino.
Right, which isn't a storm, it's a temperature shift, right?
Exactly. It's a massive displacement of warm ocean water. Normally, you have trade winds pushing warm surface water toward Asia.
Okay.
But during El Nino, those winds weaken, and that giant pool of warm water kind of sloshes back toward South America. Now, because warm water heats the air above it, changing global pressure systems, it drags the rain clouds completely away from where they usually fall.
Oh, wow.
So you end up with devastating, prolonged droughts in places like Indonesia, simply because the ocean's thermostat shifted a few degrees.
Man, it exposes just how fragile human infrastructure is when the planet shifts its weight.
It really does.
Okay, let's unpack this. If the planet is this volatile, what happens when a country is built right on top of this restless, resource-poor geography? This brings us to a really fascinating case study in human endurance, Japan.
Yeah, Japan is arguably the ultimate masterclass in adapting to a hostile geography.
The physical constraints they're dealing with are just wild. The country is incredibly mountainous, which means, very little flat land to actually build on or farm.
Right.
They sit right on the Pacific Ring of Fire, enduring hundreds of earthquakes a year. And crucially, this is the big one, they have virtually no domestic natural resources. They have to import almost all of their raw materials, like oil, iron, coal, just to keep the lights on.
It's basically a geographer's nightmare scenario for building an empire.
Exactly. And yet they are an economic titan. We're talking about roughly 128 million people packed into an area smaller than California.
Yeah, let that sink in.
Smaller than California, but look at the output. Nearly perfect adult literacy, life expectancies stretching into the 80s. They are a juggernaut in technology. I think the source said they produce massive global shares of computer components and electronics, like 34% of electronic goods or components, 24% computers.
Incredible.
So I have to ask, if they have no raw materials, no space, and their ground is constantly shaking, what is the mechanism here? Like, how did they engineer a global powerhouse out of thin air?
Well, they did it by weaponizing their only abundant resource, which is human capital.
Okay.
When you don't have iron or oil to sell, you sell ingenuity. You sell extreme efficiency. After World War II, they developed this industrial model where companies effectively functioned as extended families.
Meaning the corporation provided more than just a paycheck.
Much more. I mean, in exchange for grueling absolute dedication from the worker,
Yeah.
the massive corporate conglomerates provided lifelong job security, housing subsidies, healthcare. They essentially built a social safety net out of corporate loyalty. And it created this hyper-efficient, incredibly driven workforce that could import raw materials, refine them with advanced tech, and export them at a massive premium.
And that extreme concentration of human effort is what leads to that terrifying vulnerability we talked about at the start of the deep dive.
Yeah.
Because there is so little flat land, all of that economic power is squeezed right into Tokyo's central business district.
Yeah.
You have the major global banks, the tech headquarters, the massive stock exchange, all sitting shoulder to shoulder on a fault line.
Which is why an earthquake there wouldn't just be, a localized tragedy. It would literally sever the arteries of global finance.
Man. And this geographical bottleneck, the fact that mountains push everyone into these narrow corridors of flat land, it completely dictates the design of their daily lives.
Oh, absolutely.
Think about your own daily routine for a second. Now imagine that land is so astronomically expensive that you have to live hours away from your job. It forces you into one of the most intense daily commutes on the planet.
The physical reality of the mountains just forces the population density to unparalleled extremes.
It's so crowded that during rush hour, railway companies actually employ pushers.
Yes, the pushers.
Like guards whose literal job is to shove commuters onto the subway cars so the doors can close.
It's hard to even picture if you haven't seen it.
You have millions of people crammed together in these subterranean tubes. And because surface space is at such a premium, everything has to be stacked vertically. Like if you want to practice golf, you aren't going to a sprawling green course.
Right, there's no room for that.
You're going to a multi-story netting facility, just hitting balls off what looks like a parking garage balcony.
But if we connect this to the bigger picture, here is where the constraint forces the innovation. That intense claustrophobic commute you just described. That environment directly birthed a massive technological leap.
Yes, this is my favorite part of the geographic data, the personal stereo, like the precursor to the iPod, the smartphone audio we use today. It was invented by Japanese technicians specifically to cope with those horrific commutes.
It's a perfect behavioral adaptation. When the geography dictates that you absolutely cannot expand your physical space, human ingenuity invents a way to expand your psychological space.
That's a great way to put it.
You put on headphones to build a private virtual room around yourself because a physical room is a geographical impossibility.
I really want you to think about that next time you pop your earbuds in on a crowded bus or a flight. You are utilizing an invention born directly from Japan's lack of flatland. It's so cool.
It really is.
But the adaptation doesn't stop at electronics, obviously.
Yeah.
If you have 128 million people and virtually no arable land, how do you feed everyone?
Well, you turn away from the land and you look toward the 71% of the planet that is water. The ocean essentially becomes your agricultural heartland.
The geographic data shows that Japan built the largest fishing fleet in the world. And to conquer the vast distances of the Pacific, they didn't just build boats, they built floating factories.
Yeah, these deep-sea trawlers are incredible pieces of engineering. They operate almost like massive oceanic harvesters.
They really do.
What's the specific mechanism that makes them so efficient, though?
Well, it's all about bypassing the need for coastal land. If you bring the fish back to shore, you need massive processing plants, right?
Right, which require flat land they don't have.
Exactly. So these factory ships just stay out at sea for months. The catch is hauled in, clean, filleted, and instantly frozen or canned right on the deck. By the time the ship docks, the product is completely ready for the grocery store.
It's hyper-industrialization applied to a hunter-gatherer concept, and it's driven entirely by spatial constraints.
And this absolute reliance on the ocean shapes the very biology of their culture, too. You see it in the everyday diet. I mean, the global phenomenon of sushi, eating raw seafood, beautifully presented. But what fascinates me is how a society adapts when a specific tradition requires something the geography doesn't easily provide. Like, take sumo wrestling.
Yeah, a sport where sheer mass and an immovable center of gravity are the primary requirements for victory.
Right. But the typical Japanese diet is highly aquatic, it's lean, and very healthy. So sumo wrestlers require immense weight in a culture that doesn't really eat that way.
What do they do?
Within this resource-constrained, lean environment, they engineered a highly specialized, calorie-dense, high-protein stew called chankonabe. It's a fascinating sub-adaptation. They essentially figured out how to manufacture physical giants in a landscape that naturally encourages a lean footprint.
That's amazing. And that raises a really compelling point about their psychological relationship with their environment.
How so?
Well, if you are constantly battling earthquakes, typhoons, and the harsh realities of the deep sea, you might assume their culture views nature as an enemy to be conquered.
Yeah, that was my exact thought. Are they just at war with the geography?
Actually, it's the exact opposite.
Yeah.
The research points out that this environment forged a deep, profound reverence for the natural world. Just look at their spiritual demographics. The vast majority of the population, like 92%, practices a blend of Shinto and Buddhism.
Oh, wow. 92%.
Yeah. And these aren't just belief systems. They are frameworks for finding harmony with a volatile world. They emphasize that the physical world is fleeting and powerful, and rather than fighting it, you must respect its transience.
You see that reverence embedded right in their modern high-tech daily life, too.
Yeah.
Take the cherry blossoms in the spring.
Oh, yeah. Such a big deal.
It's not just a nice aesthetic, it's practically a national holiday. The television news networks literally track a cherry blossom front moving up the map from the south, just like they would track a weather system.
That's so unique.
Right. Millions of people drop what they are doing to have massive picnics under these trees. They are culturally pausing to celebrate how temporary the physical world is.
It's an institutionalized reminder that nothing is permanent, which is a very healthy mindset when your landlord is an active tectonic plate.
Exactly. And alongside the high-tech electronics, the physical traditions endure. The kimono, which beautifully just translates to clothing, is still worn for special occasions. You see wooden clogs called geta, bamboo fans. You have festivals like the Hakata Dantaku that have been running for over 820 years.
That's right.
Or the 753 Day for children. But the tectonic plates of their society are shifting.
You're talking about the economic slowdown.
Yeah. Here's where it gets really interesting.
Right.
We talked about that company as family model that saved them after the war, right?
Right.
Well, in the 1990s, the economy stagnated. Unemployment crept up. And suddenly, that unspoken contract where workers gave up their entire lives for corporate security was broken.
Oh, I see.
The youth began to look at this grueling work culture and say, wait, why are we doing this if the security isn't guaranteed anymore? So you have this incredible modern tension between ancient traditions, an extreme work ethic born of geography, and a younger generation trying to rewrite the rules.
It beautifully illustrates how a highly industrialized, geographically trapped nation adapts in place. But, the geographic data also presents us with a completely different model of survival.
Right.
Because what happens when the geography doesn't trap you on an island, but instead forces you to physically move across a massive continent?
Yeah, this is where we need to completely shift our lens and look at Southern Africa. We are moving from a strategy of adapting in place to a strategy of mass, desperate migration.
Exactly. In Southern Africa, the geography is dictating movement on an almost incomprehensible scale. The rural countryside, due to various ecological and economic pressures, just can no longer sustain the population.
So what happens?
People are abandoning their ancestral lands. They're
Right.
flooding into urban centers, looking for survival, looking for work.
And the scale of this urbanization is staggering. I mean, imagine the town or city you live in right now. Now imagine if over the next 8 years the population completely doubled.
It's hard to wrap your head around.
Every road, every water pipe, every school suddenly has to handle twice the capacity. The data highlights Maputo, the capital of Mozambique. Between 1975 and 1983, that city literally doubled in size to over 1.5 million people.
When a physical space absorbs that many humans that quickly, traditional infrastructure simply collapses.
Completely. The city can't build apartment buildings fast enough, so the migration organically creates massive, sprawling shanty towns around the perimeters of these economic hubs.
Yeah, you see the same thing around Johannesburg in South Africa.
Right. It is a geographic restructuring of millions of lives.
Hmm.
But here's the part that genuinely stopped me in my tracks. This physical migration isn't just changing the map, it is fundamentally rewriting gender roles.
This is perhaps one of the most profound examples of geography acting as the invisible architect of society. Break down exactly how this happens.
Okay, so the resources, like the jobs in the golden diamond mines, the heavy industries, they are located geographically very far from the rural, arable lands where these families have lived for generations.
Okay.
Because the commute isn't just a train ride, it's hundreds of miles. The men leave to go work in the mines for a year or two at a time.
Leaving the women behind in the rural villages.
Exactly. And because the men are physically gone for years, the women become the absolute majority in these towns. Now, I always assumed that major societal shifts, like women taking on new leadership roles, were driven by progressive political movements or new laws or internet connectivity.
Right, that's the standard assumption.
But here, it's just dirt and distance. The sheer geographical gap between the mine and the home forces the women to completely restructure local governance.
Wow.
They aren't just raising children. They are managing the local economy, settling disputes, running the agriculture. They take on entirely new communal responsibilities purely because the men are geographically isolated from the community.
It's a demographic tectonic shift. I mean, when the physical landscape separates a population like that, the culture has no choice but to bend, stretch, and evolve to accommodate the new reality.
Yeah.
It just proves that social norms are often just practical adaptations to the physical environment.
So let's bring this all together. We started this deep dive looking at a flat, quiet map. But what we've uncovered is that the Earth is anything but quiet.
Not at all.
From the staggering energy of a typhoon, to the way a cramped Japanese subway car birthed the personal stereo, to how the vast distances of African urbanization are single-handedly rewriting gender roles. Physical geography is the invisible hand on the steering wheel of human history.
It constantly forces our hand.
So, what does this all mean? I want you to look out your window today. Whether you are looking at a flat plain, a mountain range, a coastline, or a concrete jungle. Consider how that specific physical landscape has subtly dictated the car you drive, the price of the food in your kitchen, or maybe even the layout of your neighborhood.
And as we look to the future, that landscape is changing faster than ever.
Oh, absolutely.
The climate data we're looking at contains a critical warning about global warming. As atmospheric pollution traps heat, the polar ice caps are melting and the oceans are expanding.
The landlord is initiating the biggest remodel in human history.
Precisely. And the data explicitly points to low-lying areas that are facing existential threats. The island nation of Kiribati in the Pacific is cited as one of the first countries that may be entirely submerged.
Man, that's heavy.
We aren't just talking about changing coastlines anymore. We're talking about entire sovereign nations being erased from the map.
It forces a massive, uncomfortable question. If a simple lack of flat land forced a country like Japan to invent multi-level golf ranges and the personal stereo,
Yeah.
what incredible or entirely desperate technological and cultural adaptations are we going to have to invent when our global coastlines vanish?
Right.
When the map of our world is literally redrawn by rising water, how will humanity redesign itself to survive?
The ground beneath our feet is moving. The only question is how quickly we can adapt to where it settles next.
Suddenly, that neat little map on the classroom wall doesn't look so permanent anymore. Thanks for taking this deep dive with us.